We are fascinated with monsters. They simultaneously attract and repel us. They arouse fear in us, but we keep trying to engage with them. So there's a kind of connection between us and monsters that, just can't be avoided.
What I like about monster stories is that there's something out there and you don't quite know what it is. It's mysterious and you're filled with wonder. So you can't help but go towards it, but also it could be dangerous.
Monsters represent things that we are, as a society, told to think of as taboo or forbidden in some way, things we're not supposed to do. But who hasn't had those moments of wanting to do things you're not supposed to do? So monsters attract us precisely because they represent the forbidden.
If you could put yourself in the place of a primitive human many thousands of years ago, the only light you got is from the campfire, and beyond that campfire is the darkness that's inhabited by monsters. Now take yourself down into a cave where maybe the shaman has drawn these wonderful pictures of saber-toothed cats and bears and dire wolves and woolly rhinoceros. And by the flickering torchlight, it would seem that these pictures were coming to life. And it's as if the mental ghosts of the things that would have given our ancestors nightmares are still with us.
Monster stories have been around forever. The earliest story we have is like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and even in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's a monster. Gilgamesh has to fight a creature called Humbaba. And ever since then, religion and literature and folklore has been filled with monsters. I think it's a way in which different cultures process and handle their own fears.
Monsters represent the collective fears of the unknown. We come up with these different monsters, whether it be Godzilla or Kong, because we know that there's something else out there that is stronger than us, that we aren't really in control as much as we think we are.
Humans have always needed ways of exploring and responding to their primal fears. And that's just as true today as it was centuries ago.
The fear of monsters is so prevalent that it makes one think that it might be hardwired into the human mind. We see it in little children early on. We see it all over the planet. So it looks like the kind of thing that might be part of the architecture of human thinking and cognition. It might be in the brain, so to speak.
There is a deep-set origin point in all of us with monsters, which is, I think, every kid, long before they're dreaming about the heroes flying overhead, they're thinking about the monsters that are under their bed.
Our primitive ancestors lived on the plains of East Africa. They were preyed on by crocodiles, big cats, wild dogs. So this fascination with monsters, I think, is an ancestral survival tactic. It's been passed on, if you like, as a fossil memory.
We've all inherited this operating system of fear that has saved the species, really. So when we see something frightening like a predator, we don't have to think about it and theorize. We run. The body was built like this to keep us alive. And then we live in a sophisticated cultural world with air conditioning and central heating and lighting, and we're very far removed from the kind of African savanna where we evolved. But we still have this old operating system, sort of the reptile brain, the limbic system, and it's just aching to be activated. And so we find cultural ways to activate this fight or flight mechanism. And I think monster stories and monster movies are giving us a little roller coaster ride for the brain.
If you examine legends worldwide, you will find something that I have christened the global monster template. Every culture has its monsters. Take, for instance, the great-great-granddaddy of all the monsters, the dragon. It appears in all cultures on Earth, cultures that were never connected.
Whether it was South America, Asia, Europe, even Native Americans, you'll find dragons.
The dragon is very popular and known in the West as something that knights will fight, but of course it goes way back into Chinese history as well.
If you look at the dragons from Eastern cultures, they're actually seen as benevolent forces.
Slaying dragons is a Western concept. In the East, they are sacred, divine creatures who brought wisdom, strength, even redemption.
Dragons become what you might call a sticky meme. It's a meme that replicates all through culture. It's sticky in that sense because it's so exciting and weird and interesting that I want to look at it again, and I want to tell you about it, and you want to tell your friends. And in that way, dragons seem to be very sticky memes in the East and in the West. Sea monsters are actually very common all over the world. Sailors would come back with these stories of things they'd, half seen that didn't know what it was. You see these in the drawings of sea monsters. So cryptozoology and the idea of creatures out there that we don't know about came to be a huge sort of genre.
Cryptozoology is the study of hidden or unknown animals. Animals that have not been verified, have not been discovered. They're still on the fringes of zoology.
It's the science that looks at creatures that are as yet unknown to science, ones that are thought to be extinct but may still be lingering around, and ones of known species that have grown to fantastical dimensions.
Cryptozoology is not necessarily a field which is taken very seriously in the scientific community. Personally, I'm a fan of it. I wouldn't mind taking a few years off and having some adventures in that field myself.
Every once in a while, cryptozoology turns out to actually deliver a real animal.
There have been many animals thought to be purely mythological that were documented by science. These include the kraken, a giant squid from Norse maritime mythology. And of course, this was thought to be a complete fiction until they started turning up in the 1870s.
Off the coast of New England in the 1800s, a lot of reports of this giant tentacled creature. It was big and mean. There was reports of it coming up on boats and attacking boats, and so the giant squid was discovered.
Just when you think you know everything that's out there, science actually does dredge up some creature that you've never seen before.
A lot of people don't believe in dragons, but we know dragons exist. In the 1920s, a man had a crash on the island of Komodo, and he saw these giant lizards that were over 6 feet tall that were eating babies, they were eating pigs, and the Komodo dragon was discovered.
And there are reports today of lizards several times larger than the Komodo dragon haunting the forests of New Guinea. Creatures like the mountain gorilla, the okapi, the coelacanth, the megamouth shark, they are all relatively recent discoveries. And that begs the question, what else is out there?
Humans have always been fascinated by monsters, and what has happened in, let's say, in the last couple hundred years is that we're moving into the modern world of monsters.
Monster stories have been around forever, but now we've got film, and I think this does change the monster story.
Cinema is a new part of the tradition of monster-telling stories that has existed for thousands of years.
There's a sense in which contemporary filmmaking and monster movies, well, they have an opportunity that previous storytellers never had, and I think that's really quite magical.
Senators,
if we hope to survive, we must find ways to coexist with titans, with Godzilla.
A sort of symbiotic relationship, if you will.
We introduced an organization called Monarch, which is really the gateway, the human gateway into the Monsterverse, which is this universe where these titan, iconic monster characters battle against one another and battle with us against other foes as well.
Characters like Godzilla and Kong and Ghidorah and Mothra, these giant monoliths of pop culture, they are the modern myths that we want to bring to the big screen. So with the Monsterverse going forward, we are building a universe that can bring these towering characters, literally towering characters to the big screen and have them interact and collide in ways that audiences have never seen before.
All monsters reflect the fears of their age, and movie monsters in particular, because they're projecting them to a wider audience. And the monster is constructed in a particular cultural period by the fears of the audience.
Godzilla is made at a time when the culture is absolutely horrified by the recent explosions in Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This is a world in which a nuclear threat was a reality and horrifying for people who lived through it.
The kinds of monsters that last are monsters whose story is flexible enough that it can deal with new kinds of situations. Godzilla, born in the aftermath of World War II, connected to the atom bomb, can yet metamorphose to be a figure for the kind of ecological interests, the worries about climate change and things that are bothering us now.
More than ever now, the human race, who are the real monsters at the end of the day, are destroying the world.
Humans have been the dominant species for thousands of years, and look what's happened. Overpopulation, pollution, war.
The mass extinction we feared has already begun, and we are the cause. We are the infection.
The relationship between mankind and nature is central to really all giant monster films, whether it's Godzilla, Kong, beasts from 20,000 Fathoms. They all have a very similar message, which is that Mother Nature will strike back.
And for us to modernize that, we really wanted to treat it as an allegory for global warming and climate change. Godzilla represents nature fighting back.
I mean, theoretically, you could take out the word Godzilla and just apply the word nature. You know, we have to form a symbiotic relationship with Godzilla/nature. We must find ways to live with Godzilla/nature. Because to me, that's what he's always represented. He's Mother Nature's 800 megaton gorilla. And Mother Nature, when threatened, will unleash Godzilla against whatever might be a threat, whether that be other monsters or us. There's a very deep and soulful intent to Godzilla underneath all the monster mayhem, whether it's about the horrors of atomic warfare or the threat to the environment that mankind can hold. It has a sort of mythic purpose.
It is really something about being human that asks us to sort of rehearse and think about our greatest fears and then develop a story in which they can sort of be handled or conquered. And when I do research on monsters, whether it's the latest Hollywood film or whether it's, something in Aristotle's theory of monsters, I feel connected to this ancient human tradition.
People who are sitting in a cinema watching a modern monster movie are engaging in precisely the same exploration of fear and terror and things that scare us as their ancestors were. It doesn't matter that we're doing it in a modern medium, it's the same process.
Sitting in the dark with an audience at a monster movie, we can think about it almost like sitting in the dark with our caveman tribe and people telling stories as the saber-toothed tiger roars in the background there. The sense of telling a story as a way, almost as a mantra against fear, against the possibility of death, against the monstrous there. I mean, I think it just goes to some kind of human essence, an essence in human history that goes directly from that caveman situation to the situation of sitting in the dark with people that we don't know watching a monster movie.